The French President Emmanuel Macron struck a blow for climate change, or so it seemed, when his parliament passed a law banning all exploration and production of oil and natural gas in France by 2040. Existing drilling permits will not be renewed and no new exploration licenses will be granted. The law would also apply to the 5 French territories. It sounds better than actually is, though, because for oil and gas produced in France, it accounts only for 1% of the domestic consumption. The balance, 99%, is imported, and there is no early end to that. Emmanuel Macron is probably aware of how symbolic this move is, but it should be seen as an attempt to breathe new life into the landmark Paris Accord on climate change, now 2 years old, which, remember, has been badly hit by Donald Trump's decision to pull out of it. In fact, Emmanuel Macron's decision by July to ban the sale of petrol and diesel vehicles by 2040 should be seen as another effort to push forward the climate change accord. Comparatively, China has shown more imagination and courage, so to say, in going forward with its own growth-driven agenda, which has spin-offs for the world environment. The case in point being that China is planning to make the country the world's largest carbon market. They have a plan. An emission trading scheme will come into force in 2019. That will help China reduce its own emissions by 2030. It also gives financial incentives to coal and gas-fired plants to cut emissions. The plants have to hold permits for those emissions, and plants that achieve emission standards can sell their extra permits. Unlike the United States of America, China's pragmatic leadership sees an opportunity in climate change, and this to drive economic growth. China's move away from coal towards newer energy sources will drive technologies, create new demands and new markets. China, in fact, is already investing heavily in solar panels and lithium-ion batteries. Shanghai is expected to be the center of the new carbon trading market. It will involve 3 billion tons of carbon dioxide a year and 1,700 power companies, the biggest emitters of greenhouse gases. The nearest competitor is the European Union, which is expected to trade around 1.4 billion tons of carbon emissions this year. China has been quietly testing pilot carbon markets. Currently, there are 7 such carbon markets and 3,000 companies that have reportedly traded 197 million tons of carbon dioxide. Where does India stand in all this picture? Well, India has set a deadline by 2030. By this deadline, it will reduce the intensity of its carbon emissions by about 35% from 2005 levels. India has also identified 8 national missions towards a cleaner, more sustainable future. 8 national missions are a national solar mission to tap abundant sunlight, an enhanced energy efficiency to save 10,000 megawatts, sustainable habitat to be achieved through better designed buildings, urban management and other measures. And then a water mission to conserve and better manage that resource. And a mission to sustain the Himalayan ecosystem. The creation of carbon sinks, meaning focus on forest tree cover areas. A sustainable agriculture to identify thermal resistant crops. Then a knowledge mission to build information base on climate change. India wants to have 175 gigawatts of power by 2022 and is targeting 40% of non-fossil fuel-based energy capacity by 2030. These policies are expected to ensure continued 6 to 7% growth and a modest increase in jobs, reduce pollution and better the environment.
Et donc quand je dis qu'on est en train de perdre la bataille aujourd'hui, je veux que vous preniez conscience que derrière moi, il y a des chefs d'État et de gouvernement. Dans 50, 60 ou 100 ans, il y en a 5, 10, 15 qui ne seront plus là. Tout simplement. Ça veut dire ça, ce qu'on est en train de faire. Et donc quand je dis qu'on est en train de perdre la bataille aujourd'hui, je veux...
And joining us to understand better the meaning of all this activism that the French president has, we have Surya Gangadharam, our senior editor. Thank you very much, Surya, and good evening to you. So it seems to me that climate is becoming more and more of a political issue. We have France, we have China trying to take the lead in this game of making the world more environmental friendly. Is it so?
I would say that a lot of things are political. As we know, business and economy is today a big political issue. So why not climate change? And the fact that it is affecting worldwide so many countries, and some countries are not expected to survive very long if the continued emission of greenhouse gases continues. So obviously it is a political issue. And President Macron sees an opportunity to insert himself into a debate where the US is absent. So that's another fig leaf for him. He can push his country forward, he can push his case forward, and it's something which the whole world largely agrees with. So really he's not stepping on any toes over here.
And also, Surya, I spoke a little bit about how India is positioned in these sort of, so to call it, race for clean power. We know that China is having a very pragmatic attitude, as always. They decided this is an opportunity and they are investing billions in turning it actually a profitable business, which is one of the points that Donald Trump made, saying that the environmental economy is not absolutely pro-business. So China is doing so. What about India?
Well, I think India's progress has been slower, perhaps measured. That's the term I would use. I think largely because a lot of awareness has to be built, and even the government lacks capacity and perhaps even a knowledge base to take this entire climate issue forward. I mean, if you just need to build a government capacity to take these initiatives forward, it requires an enormous effort and investment. I think that's something the government is working towards, so the results may not be apparent perhaps in the time frame that is envisaged, but some moves are already being made. You saw the International Solar Alliance has been set up. There is a deadline they have set for reducing the intensity of global gas, of India's greenhouse gas emissions. There's also a plan for 175 gigawatts of solar power. So clearly there are some things that can be implemented. How well they implemented, we have to see.
Thank you very much. This was Surya Gangadharan, our senior editor, helping us to understand a bit better this race at the end of the day, which might be one of the healthy competition in the world between France, between China. They're all trying to take the lead in something which could, at the end of the day, benefit us all.